Spartacus was a Thracian warrior who became one of the most legendary figures of antiquity, not for his victories in the arena but for leading the largest and most famous slave uprising against the Roman Republic. Though details about his early life are scarce, it is believed that he was originally a free man, possibly serving as a soldier in the Thracian auxiliary forces before being captured and sold into slavery by the Romans. Some ancient sources suggest that he may have been a deserter or that he had fought against Rome before being enslaved. Regardless of his origins, he was eventually purchased by Lentulus Batiatus, the owner of a gladiatorial school in Capua, where he was trained to become a professional fighter for the bloody spectacles of the Roman amphitheaters. However, life as a gladiator was brutal, and Spartacus, along with his fellow fighters, longed for freedom. In 73 BC, he and about 70 other gladiators orchestrated a daring escape, breaking out of the school using kitchen utensils and seizing proper weapons from a nearby armory. Once free, they fled to Mount Vesuvius, using the rugged terrain as their base. What began as a desperate flight for survival quickly turned into something much greater. Word of the escape spread, and slaves from across the region began flocking to Spartacus' banner. Within months, his small band of gladiators had transformed into an army of thousands, composed of runaway slaves, impoverished peasants, and even some disillusioned Roman citizens seeking a better life outside the constraints of the Republic's rigid social hierarchy. Recognizing the need for structure, Spartacus and his closest allies, including the Gauls Crixus and Oenomaus, organized their forces into a disciplined fighting unit. Unlike a typical mob of rebels, these men were skilled fighters, many of whom had previous military experience either as former Roman auxiliaries or as warriors from their homelands. This made them far more dangerous than the Senate initially realized. When Rome sent a small, hastily assembled force to crush the rebellion, Spartacus and his men ambushed and annihilated them, seizing more weapons and armor in the process. The Senate responded by dispatching stronger legions, but time and again, Spartacus outmaneuvered them, using superior tactics, guerrilla warfare, and the natural landscape to his advantage. His forces defeated several consular armies, embarrassing Rome and causing widespread panic among the elite. Some sources suggest that at its peak, his army grew to over 100,000 men, including women and children who followed the rebels in hopes of securing freedom. Unlike many rebel leaders who sought only revenge or chaos, Spartacus had a clear objective: he wanted to lead his people out of Italy, away from the reach of Rome. He is said to have planned to march north toward the Alps, allowing his men to disperse back to their homelands. However, internal divisions weakened the movement. Crixus and a faction of Gauls and Germans preferred to remain in Italy, looting and plundering, rather than escaping. This split forced Spartacus to fight a series of unnecessary battles, costing valuable time and resources. Despite these difficulties, he continued to defeat Roman armies and even threatened to march on Rome itself, though whether he seriously intended to attack the capital remains a topic of debate. By 71 BC, Rome could no longer afford to ignore the rebellion. The Senate entrusted Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, with full command of the war. Unlike his predecessors, Crassus took drastic measures, implementing strict discipline, including the brutal practice of decimation, executing 1 in every 10 of his own soldiers to instill fear and prevent desertion. Crassus cornered Spartacus in the south of Italy, building massive fortifications to trap the rebels. Realizing that they were running out of options, Spartacus attempted to negotiate with pirates to secure passage to Sicily, hoping to ignite further revolts there. However, the pirates betrayed him, taking his gold and abandoning him. With no other choice, Spartacus broke through Crassus' lines, but by this point, his forces were exhausted and desperate. The final battle came in the spring of 71 BC, when Spartacus and his remaining men made a last stand against Crassus' legions. Though outnumbered and facing inevitable defeat, they fought with remarkable bravery. Spartacus himself is said to have personally slain many Roman soldiers in combat, trying to reach Crassus and kill him. However, he was ultimately overwhelmed and killed, though his body was never found. In the aftermath, Rome showed no mercy. Over 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, their bodies left to rot as a warning to any who might consider defying Roman rule. The uprising had been crushed, but its impact endured. Spartacus became a symbol of resistance, inspiring countless generations with his fight for freedom. His rebellion exposed the vulnerabilities of Rome's reliance on slavery and remains one of the most dramatic and significant uprisings in the history of the ancient world.